A very good morning to everybody. Welcome to the Toyota booth and welcome to LogiMAT 2024. My name is Marc Maureaux and I'm a Senior Sustainability Manager for Toyota Material Handling Europe. I'm very pleased to be talking to you for the next 10 minutes about sustainability and how the topic is being approached at Toyota Material Handling. So effectively, what we will look into during this presentation is basically how can we address the challenges that we see upon us at the moment. Essentially, logistics is actually accounting for pretty much 1 trillion euros in terms of business in Europe and is employing over 7 million people across Europe. So it's really safe to say that it's the backbone of the European industry. And as such, we want to see how can we manage the transition to moving to a sustainable business model as an industry. How can we embrace decarbonization? How can we move to a circular business model and embrace transparency in the value chain? During the next 10 minutes, we will look at 10 concrete steps that can be taken in order to meet those expectations. First and foremost, before you want to go any further, the first step is very clearly looking into the actual scale of the challenge. When we talk about sustainability, one of the core topics on everyone's lips is carbon and carbon reduction. If we look into the logistics industry altogether in transport, we're talking about 24% of the share of the global emissions relating to carbon. So obviously, when we talk about the challenge, this is what is at scale and why there can be a very positive impact being made in the future. The second point, very clearly, is in terms of the context that we evolve in. And what we see here is that legislation in Europe is playing a key role in actually driving the agenda forward. If you look to the European Green Deal, which has been implemented by the Van der Leyen Commission since the last 5 years, you have a package of 50, no less than 50 directives and regulations coming into Europe into place. And there you're talking about basically different things from mandatory reporting that is going to come into effect from 2025. You talk about having carbon border adjustment mechanism to put a price on carbon for raw materials. You talk about digital product passports. You're talking about value chain management with a CSDDD as it's so called. So ultimately, there is just so much coming our way that is very important to embrace the challenge at the highest level. And that leads me to the third point of the presentation, which is about leadership. Sustainability used to be the job of only a few and a department to actually manage. But what is very clear is that with the context that we evolve in, you're actually talking about the business transformation. And as such, it needs to be led from the top. It needs to be led from the top management in order for it to actually be effective. What we do see as well is the need to actually own, in terms of a director to VP level, the accountability of the targets. And this is where we, for example, implemented an ESG committee, which is not in the top management, but one layer down to ensure that you can drive actions across all the functions of the organization. In terms of leadership, again, one thing that can be done is actually try to, where possible, anticipate regulation. We know that from 2025, large companies will have to report according to the new ESRS framework, which is the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. And as such, there will be a lot more KPIs and standardization of the KPIs that need to be done across industries. And as such, we're very proud to say that at Toyota Material Handling Europe, we've had the chance in our last sustainability report, which we've just released this week, to follow this new framework already 2 years before we legally have to. It doesn't mean that we meet all the KPIs. It doesn't mean that we have everything, let's be clear. But we already want to show that transparency, that we're on a journey. And we're literally one of the first companies in the world to follow that framework. So we're very pleased about that. It's a journey, it's a challenge, but we're embracing it. The next point is around sustainability across the organization. We talked about top management, but obviously it's important that it's embedded in each and every function of the organization and in each and every entity. So as such, having sustainability leads in every function and in every organization allows for the targets to be driven forward and to be embedded across the organization. Again, one point is defining the targets, defining the topics. It's not up to us only to do that. What is clear is that the impact is much broader. So a core element is called stakeholder engagement, making sure that we do engage with our stakeholders, whether they are suppliers, whether they are customers, whether it's the value chain, whether it's the civil society, and asking them, where do we have the biggest impact in society, and what can be the society having the biggest effect on us? So here, very clearly, this process is a key in order to define the right topic, which we're going to see in a second. The second part is about engaging customers on the topic and understanding their priorities, whether it's carbon, whether it's circular economy, whether it's working with workers in the value chain, whether it's diversity, making sure we understand their target, analyze, and respond. Here we will not go into every detail because it's a very detailed graph, but again, this is the so-called double materiality matrix, which shows on the top right-hand corner what our stakeholders told us are the key topic that we need to matter. So for example, for us, energy efficiency is at the top of the game. Safety, health and safety, this is the foundation of basically the culture within Toyota and basically what is a core topic that we need to manage. Quality, of course, and other topics like carbon. So these are the topics that have been defined by our stakeholders as the key for us to manage. Once the priorities are set, what is key is that if you talk about transformation, you need to set a target. We have a saying which is no measurement equals no improvement. And what we see here is that it's very important to set the baseline, to set the targets in the future, get the right accountability, and then deliver. Because again, you talk about transformation, you talk about delivering ISO certification, you're talking about developing new products. And as such, it's very important to have a roadmap that basically allows you to do that with the right accountability in the organization. Setting targets is all great, but if you wanted to build added credibility, it's also key to actually look into external verification, third party, wherever possible, to actually look into what can be done in order to have external validation, whether it's, again, the Science-Based Target Initiative, which is the reference for carbon. If you are able to set a target for decarbonization aligned with Science-Based Target, then you know that that organization is committed to basically report year on year and set targets aligned with science. So that adds a gauge of credibility. Same thing with EcoVadis, with independent assessments of the performance that you have on sustainability credentials. So these are tools that can be used to manage the flow and to manage the transparency of your targets. Last but not least, or second to last, sorry, working with the entire value chain is a core priority. What we should not forget is that financial terms, you work for the balance sheet of your company. Sustainability terms, you work for the balance sheet or the sustainability balance sheet of your suppliers and your value chain and your customers. So that means you really need to have a much broader perspective, and alone you will not be able to make it. And what is very clear is that, again, if we look to the topic of carbon, only 1% of the emissions relate to our scope 1 and 2, so the emissions from our operations. So if we want to go zero carbon, we need to work with our suppliers, who represent 30% of the carbon footprint, and also with our customers, who represent 69% of the total equation. So it's very important to start exchanging data, to start exchanging targets, and engage on the process. This is why we've asked already climate-critical suppliers to engage with the Science-Based Target Initiative and ensure that they deliver, so that we can have an effect there and good results. The same applies to the whole topic of transparency in the value chain and managing with EcoVadis and Code of Conduct for suppliers. Last but not least, the part which is probably the most important for this fair as well here today is what concrete solutions can you bring to the marketplace relating to those targets. If we look to the topic that we've been talking about, energy efficiency, for instance, this is a core topic, and as such you can see, for example, some of the models which are at the back of the booth with a Staxio range, which have basically energy efficiency improvements over 20% versus the previous model. So this is where you need R&D and product management to deliver solutions so that you can increase this efficiency. If you look to the topic of carbon in the future technology area, you will be able to also see what we can do with the area of circularity and reducing carbon footprint of materials. So this is also concrete solutions. When it comes to safety, you have features like camera technology. Hans is talking about innovation as well, and the innovation radar. And basically, technology, of course, can help to increase safety in the workplace, with features like Sense Plus on trucks or SAS as definitely of a help. The very last point is what you can see in the center here with automation. Because again, with automation, what you're able to do is to even up the flows to avoid accidents in the workplace. and of course, at the same time, add energy efficiency, having a smooth operating flow, and also more durability of machines because they have less shocks as well. So it's again delivering sustainability benefits next to answering some needs of the customers. So that's what I had to cover for you for today. Thank you very much for your attention.